Hi everyone. I don't even know where to start. I'm sitting here at my desk, staring at the blinking cursor on my screen, trying to make sense of the chaos that my life has turned into. I feel like the person I trusted the most has gutted me, left me hollow, and walked away as if it was nothing. I'm writing this here because I need to let it out somewhere, and honestly, I don't think I can handle seeing the pity in someone's eyes when I tell them face to face. It all started about 6 months ago, but I guess I should backtrack a little to give you some context. My wife, Melissa, and I have been married for 12 years. We met in college, fell in love fast, and built a life together that, at least from the outside, looked perfect. We both had decent jobs, a beautiful house, and no kids, by choice or so I thought. Melissa was always the strong, confident one in the relationship. She had this magnetic energy that drew people to her. Meanwhile, I was the quiet, steady type, the one who kept things running smoothly in the background. Over the years, though, I noticed small cracks forming. Melissa would sometimes brush off my attempts to connect. I'd come home from work, excited to share something, and she'd wave me off with, "Can we talk later? I'm tired." At first, I told myself it was normal. Relationships go through phases, right? But then the later never came. The laughter that used to echo through our house became a faint memory. The warmth in her eyes when she looked at me turned into something colder, distant, almost indifferent. 6 months ago, it all came to a head. Melissa had just come back from a girls' weekend with her friends. I use air quotes because I later found out it wasn't just the girls she was spending time with, but I'll get to that. Anyway, she was unpacking her suitcase in our bedroom when I decided to bring up what had been weighing on me. I told her I felt like we were drifting apart, like we'd become strangers living under the same roof. I'll never forget her response. She didn't even pause what she was doing. She kept folding clothes as she said, "Closeness is optional, you know? It's not like we need to be attached at the hip to make this work." Her words hit me like a slap in the face. Closeness is optional? Since when? I asked her what she meant, and she rolled her eyes like I was being dramatic. Not everything has to be about us, okay? Sometimes people just need space. You're suffocating me. Suffocating her? I barely saw her anymore. I didn't even know how to respond, so I just nodded and left the room. That night, I slept on the couch. She didn't come down to check on me. The next few weeks were a blur of avoidance. Melissa started staying out later, claiming she was busy with work or catching up with friends. I tried to believe her, but there was this gnawing feeling in my gut that wouldn't go away. One night, I decided to test the waters. I casually asked if I could join her the next time she went out with her friends. Her reaction was instant. She got defensive, saying she didn't need me tagging along and that she deserved time to herself. That was when I knew something was off. I started paying closer attention. She was glued to her phone, always smiling at messages she wouldn't share with me. Her work trips became more frequent, and when she came back, she seemed happier. Not the kind of happy you'd expect after a stressful business trip, but a glow that made me sick to my stomach. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. She had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, and while I'm not proud of what I did, I snooped. What I found shattered me. There were emails and messages between her and someone named Eric. The conversations were flirty, filled with inside jokes, and some of the photos they exchanged. Let's just say I'll never be able to unsee them. Eric wasn't just some random guy. He was her coworker. The one she always mentioned in passing, like he was no big deal. The one who, apparently, she'd been sneaking off to see during her girls' weekends and work trips. I confronted her that same night. She didn't even try to deny it. Instead, she shrugged and said, "Look, I need something you're not giving me. Eric understands me in ways you never could." I was speechless. All I could do was stare at her as she walked upstairs, leaving me standing in the kitchen with my heart in pieces. That was the night I decided to stop trying. If closeness was optional for her, then maybe our marriage was, too. The days that followed our confrontation were some of the darkest of my life. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I couldn't think about anything except Melissa and Eric. Every time I closed my eyes, I'd see her smiling at her phone or hear her words echoing in my head. Eric understands me in ways you never could. I kept replaying every moment in our marriage, trying to figure out where it all went wrong. Was it me? Was I too boring, too predictable? Or had she just grown tired of the life we built together? The questions swirled around my mind, but the answers were elusive. Melissa, meanwhile, carried on like nothing had happened. She didn't apologize. She didn't ask how I was feeling. In fact, she barely acknowledged me at all. It was as if I had become invisible to her. She'd come home late, shower, and go straight to bed without saying a word. The distance between us wasn't just emotional anymore. It was physical, too. We were strangers living in the same house, orbiting around each other without ever crossing paths. One night, as I sat alone in the living room, I decided I couldn't go on like this. If she wasn't going to prioritize our marriage, then why should I? I opened my laptop and started researching divorce lawyers. The idea of ending a 12-year marriage terrified me, but staying in this hollow shell of a relationship scared me even more. That's when I stumbled across an article about emotional detachment. It was about how to protect yourself when you're in a one-sided relationship. The advice was simple. Stop investing in someone who isn't investing in you. Pull back, focus on yourself, and let them see what life is like without your constant support. I decided to give it a try. If Melissa thought closeness was optional, then I'd show her what that really meant. The next morning, I got up early and left for work before she woke up. I didn't leave her the usual note on the counter or text her during the day to check in. When I got home that evening, I didn't ask about her day or try to make small talk. Instead, I went straight to the bedroom, closed the door, and started sorting through my things. I found a box of old photos from when we were first dating. We looked so happy back then, carefree and completely in love. I wondered if she ever thought about those times, or if Eric had erased all those memories for her. As the weeks went by, I stuck to my plan. I stopped asking where she was going or who she was with. I stopped trying to make her laugh or brighten her day. I even stopped cooking dinner for her, which had always been my way of showing love. At first, she didn't seem to notice. But then, little by little, I saw the confusion start to creep in. "Why are you so quiet lately?" she asked one night as we sat across from each other at the dinner table. I shrugged. "Just tired, I guess." She frowned but didn't press further. A few days later, she asked if I wanted to join her for a movie night. I told her I had plans, even though I didn't. I just went out for a drive and sat in the parking lot of a diner, staring at my phone and wondering how my life had come to this. Then came the night that changed everything. Melissa came home late again, smelling like expensive cologne that definitely wasn't hers. I was sitting in the living room, flipping through channels on the TV, when she walked in. She hesitated for a moment, like she was debating whether to say something. Finally, she cleared her throat. "We need to talk," she said. I turned off the TV and looked at her. For the first time in months, I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her eyes. She looked nervous, almost afraid. "What is it?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. She sat down across from me and took a deep breath. "I feel like we're drifting apart," she said. "I don't know how we got here, but I miss what we used to have." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She missed what we used to have? The irony was almost laughable. "You miss what we used to have?" I repeated, my voice dripping with disbelief. "You're the one who decided to build a relationship with someone else while I was here, trying to hold everything together." Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might cry. But then she straightened her back and looked me in the eye. "I made a mistake," she said. "I thought I needed something different, but now I see what I've been throwing away. I want to fix this, if you're willing to give me a chance." I didn't know whether to laugh, cry, or scream. After months of neglect, after everything she'd said and done, now she wanted to fix things? Now, when I had finally started to let go. "I don't know, Melissa," I said, my voice trembling. "I don't know if there's anything left to fix." She reached across the table and grabbed my hand, her grip desperate. "Please," she whispered, "I'll do whatever it takes. Just don't give up on us." I pulled my hand away and stood up. "I need time to think," I said. That night, I slept in the guest room. I stared at the ceiling for hours, wondering if I was a fool for even considering giving her another chance. Deep down, though, I knew the truth. Melissa wasn't sorry for what she'd done. She was sorry because she realized what she stood to lose. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to be the man she settled for when her fantasy with Eric didn't pan out. After that night, things between Melissa and me entered a strange, unspoken limbo. She made an effort to fix things, cooking dinner, suggesting we go out for drinks, even sending me little texts during the day like she used to. On the surface, it looked like she was trying, but something about it felt forced, almost transactional, like she was just checking boxes to win me back rather than genuinely reconnecting. I wasn't buying it. Not after everything I'd learned. Not after the hours I'd spent scrolling through her messages with Eric, piecing together a version of my wife I hadn't known existed. The kind of woman who'd laugh at my corny jokes at the dinner table, then turn around and tell another man, "God, sometimes he's so boring it makes me want to scream." It was hard to look at her the same way after that. Still, I played along, at least for a while. I wanted to see how far she'd take this newfound act of devotion. Part of me hoped it was real, that she genuinely wanted to make amends. But the other part, the part that had been crushed and humiliated, couldn't let go of the suspicion that this was just another manipulation. A week later, I got my answer. It was a Saturday night, and Melissa suggested we have a date night at home. She lit some candles, ordered takeout from our favorite Thai place, and even dusted off the old wedding album. I'll admit, I almost fell for it. For a few fleeting moments, as we flipped through the photos and laughed at how young we looked, I felt like we were the same couple we used to be. But then her phone buzzed. She tried to play it cool, casually flipping it face down on the table, but I saw the name flash across the screen. Eric. That was it. The final straw. I excused myself, pretending to go to the bathroom, and instead walked out to the garage, my heart pounding in my chest. I needed air. I needed space. I needed to figure out how the hell I was going to confront her without completely losing my mind. As I stood there, staring at the shelves of dusty tools and half-finished projects, an idea started to form. If Melissa thought she could juggle two lives, one with me and one with Eric, then maybe it was time to show her what life looked like when I stopped being the safety net. The next morning, I woke up early and went for a drive. I didn't tell Melissa where I was going, and for the first time in years, I didn't care if she noticed. I stopped by a lawyer's office, a small place tucked between a bakery and a hardware store. I hadn't made an appointment, but they squeezed me in for a consultation. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Clara, listened patiently as I explained the situation. When I told her about the messages, the lies, and the months of emotional neglect, she didn't look surprised. "Unfortunately, this kind of thing happens more often than you'd think," she said, pushing a packet of paperwork across the desk. "But you have options. If you want to move forward with a divorce, we can start building a case." I stared at the papers, my hands trembling. Was I really ready to end a 12-year marriage? Was this the only way out? Clara must have sensed my hesitation because she leaned forward, her tone softening. "Take your time," she said. "But remember, you deserve to be in a relationship where you're valued and respected. Don't let guilt or fear keep you in a situation that's only hurting you." Her words stuck with me as I drove home. By the time I pulled into the driveway, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to let Melissa string me along anymore. If she wanted to be with Eric, she could have him. But she wasn't going to have me waiting in the wings. When I walked into the house, she was sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. She looked up and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Hey, you're back early," she said. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked over to the bookshelf, grabbed the wedding album we looked at the night before, and dropped it on the coffee table in front of her. "What's this about?" she asked, her smile faltering. "I want you to tell me the truth," I said, my voice steady. "No lies, no excuses. Just the truth. Are you still seeing him?" Her eyes widened, and for a moment, I thought she might deny it. But then she looked away, fiddling with the hem of her sweater. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Don't insult me, Melissa," I snapped. "I saw the messages. I know everything." Her head shot up, panic flashing across her face. "You went through my phone?" "Don't even try to make me the bad guy here," I said. "You're the one who lied. You're the one who cheated. You're the one who decided our marriage wasn't worth fighting for." She opened her mouth to respond, but no words came out. For the first time in months, she looked small, vulnerable, but I didn't feel sorry for her. Not anymore. I've already spoken to a lawyer, I said, crossing my arms. I'm filing for divorce. Her jaw dropped. You're serious? Dead serious, I said. Closeness might be optional for you, but commitment isn't optional for me. If you can't give me that, then there's no point in pretending this marriage still exists. Melissa stared at me, her eyes filling with tears. But instead of apologizing, instead of begging me to reconsider, she said something that made my blood run cold. You won't go through with it, she said, her voice trembling. You don't have the guts. I walked out of the room without another word. That night, I started packing my things. The next few days were surreal. Melissa didn't say much after my announcement about the divorce, but her actions spoke volumes. She started acting like the perfect wife, cooking elaborate meals, cleaning the house, and even asking about my day like she genuinely cared. It was almost laughable, but I wasn't falling for it. I'd already seen behind the curtain, and there was no way I could unsee it. One evening, she brought me a glass of wine as I sat in the living room, packing up my files for work. Can we talk? She asked, her voice soft. I glanced up at her, tired of the games. About what? I don't want to lose you, she said, sitting on the edge of the couch. Her eyes glistened with tears, and for a moment, I almost believed her. Almost. I know I've messed up, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to fix this. Melissa, I said, setting my papers aside. You're only saying this because you're scared of what life looks like without me. If Eric was enough for you, we wouldn't even be having this conversation. She flinched at his name, confirming what I already knew. Eric doesn't matter, she said quickly. He never mattered. I was just confused. Confused? I repeated, anger bubbling up inside me. You weren't confused when you were sneaking off to see him. You weren't confused when you were trashing me in your texts. Don't act like this was some innocent mistake. Her expression hardened, the vulnerability vanishing as quickly as it had appeared. Do you really think this is all my fault? She snapped. You've been so distant for years. Do you know how lonely I've felt? Lonely? I said, standing up. You shut me out. Every time I tried to connect with you, you pushed me away. Don't blame me for your choices. She opened her mouth to argue, but stopped herself. For the first time, it seemed like she had nothing left to say. The following weekend, I moved into a small apartment across town. It wasn't much, just a one-bedroom with outdated furniture and a view of a parking lot, but it was mine. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Melissa called me constantly in those first few days, but I let most of her calls go to voicemail. The messages were a mix of anger, sadness, and desperation, but none of them swayed me. I knew this was just another attempt to manipulate me into coming back. Then, one night, she showed up at my apartment unannounced. I opened the door to find her standing there, looking disheveled and tear-streaked. Please, she said, her voice cracking, just hear me out. Against my better judgment, I let her in. She sat on the couch, wringing her hands as she tried to explain herself. I've cut Eric out of my life, she said. I told him it's over. I realized I was chasing something that didn't even exist. I wanted to believe her, but something about her story didn't add up. Why now? I asked. Why did it take me leaving for you to figure this out? She looked down at her hands, her silence telling me everything I needed to know. Melissa, I said, my voice calm but firm. You're not here because you love me. You're here because you're afraid of being alone. Her head shot up, her eyes wide. That's not true, she said quickly. I love you. I've always loved you. But I didn't believe her. Not anymore. Then prove it, I said. Sign the divorce papers and let me go. Her face crumpled, and for a moment, I thought she might actually agree. But instead, she stood up, her expression hardening once again. You're making a mistake, she said. You think you'll be happier without me, but you'll regret this. I watched as she walked out the door, slamming it behind her. For the first time in months, I felt a strange sense of relief. She had shown me her true colors, and there was no going back. After Melissa's dramatic exit from my apartment, I thought I'd finally have some peace. For the first time in months, I felt like I could focus on rebuilding my life. I threw myself into work, started going to the gym, and even reconnected with a few old friends. It felt good, liberating, even. But deep down, I knew Melissa wasn't done. She proved me right a week later. It started with a knock on my door late at night. I opened it to find Eric standing there. My blood ran cold. Of all people, he was the last person I expected, or wanted, to see. "What the hell are you doing here?" I asked, barely keeping my temper in check. He held up his hands like he was surrendering. "I just want to talk," he said. "Please." I didn't want to let him in, but curiosity got the better of me. I stepped aside, and he walked in, looking more nervous than I'd ever seen anyone. "I ended things with Melissa," he said, sitting down on the couch. "I thought you should know." I stared at him, trying to figure out his angle. "Why would I care about that?" "Because she's not who you think she is," he said, his voice shaking. "She told me things that make me think she's dangerous." "Dangerous?" That caught me off guard. "What are you talking about?" Eric hesitated, then pulled out his phone. "She's been texting me non-stop since I ended it, threatening me, saying she'll ruin my career if I don't take her back." He showed me the messages, and my stomach turned. There they were, pages and pages of texts from Melissa, each one more desperate and unhinged than the last. She accused him of using her, warned him not to cross her, and even hinted at exposing things that could destroy his reputation. "She's spiraling," Eric said, looking genuinely terrified. "I thought I was the one in control, but now I see. She's not someone you can just walk away from." I didn't know what to say. This wasn't the Melissa I knew, or maybe it was, and I'd just been too blind to see it. Either way, one thing was clear. The woman I'd spent 12 years of my life with was capable of things I never imagined. The next morning, I called my lawyer. I didn't tell her about Eric's visit. I wasn't ready to open that can of worms, but I did ask her to speed up the divorce proceedings. Clara agreed, warning me to be prepared for a fight. "If she's as manipulative as you say, she won't make this easy," she said. She was right. Melissa showed up at my workplace later that week, causing a scene in front of my coworkers. She demanded to talk, screaming about how I was ruining her life. Security had to escort her out, and I spent the rest of the day fielding awkward questions from my colleagues. That night, I got a call from her. I almost didn't answer, but something told me I needed to hear what she had to say. "I'm not signing anything," she said, her voice cold and calculated. "If you think you can just walk away from me, you're dead wrong." Click. She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, staring at my phone, feeling a mix of anger and fear. Melissa wasn't just refusing to let go. She was doubling down. And if Eric's warnings were anything to go by, things were only going to get worse. After Melissa's threatening call, I knew I couldn't afford to let my guard down. Every text, every knock at the door, every unexpected call sent my anxiety through the roof. I started to feel like I was being watched, paranoid, maybe, but with everything Melissa had done, it didn't feel entirely unjustified. A few days later, my lawyer called with an update. "Melissa is contesting the divorce," Clara said, her voice steady but cautious. "She's claiming she's entitled to a significant portion of your assets, even though you have a prenuptial agreement." "What?" I said, my voice rising. "That prenup is airtight. She agreed to it." "She did," Clara replied. "But she's arguing that you emotionally abandoned her, which in some states can be used to challenge the terms. It's weak, but it's not impossible." I hung up feeling numb. It wasn't just about the money, it was about control. Melissa was trying to keep her hooks in me, and I was starting to realize just how far she was willing to go. That evening, I got another knock at the door. This time, it wasn't Melissa or Eric. It was the police. "Mr. Daniels?" one of the officers asked. "We received a report from your wife. She claims you've been harassing her and making threats." I felt like the floor had been ripped out from under me. "What? That's not true." "She's provided screenshots of texts," the officer continued. "Do you mind coming down to the station to answer a few questions?" I was too stunned to argue. At the station, they showed me the so-called evidence. Texts that looked like they came from my number, filled with threats and abusive language. But I knew they weren't mine. Melissa had fabricated them, and now I had to prove it. Thankfully, Clara was quick to act. She subpoenaed my phone records, which showed no evidence of those texts being sent. The case was dropped, but the damage had already been done. My reputation was tarnished, and my trust in Melissa's limits, or lack thereof, was shattered. I decided it was time to fight back, but not in the way Melissa expected. I started gathering evidence, everything from her texts to Eric to the scenes she'd caused at my workplace. I even convinced Eric to write a statement about her threats, though he insisted on remaining anonymous. The breaking point came when I discovered she'd been snooping into my financial records. A fraud alert notified me that someone had attempted to access my bank accounts. When I confronted Melissa about it, she denied everything, but I could see the guilt written all over her face. "I just needed to know where we stood," she said, her voice dripping with fake innocence. "No, you wanted leverage," I shot back. "But it's over, Melissa. I'm done playing your games." The next day, I filed an emergency motion to freeze our joint accounts and secure my assets. Melissa was furious. She showed up at my apartment again, pounding on the door and screaming about how I was ruining her life. I didn't open the door. Instead, I called the police and filed a restraining order. Melissa underestimated me. She thought I'd back down, that I'd let her manipulate me into staying. But this time, I wasn't going to let her win. Melissa's attempts to control the situation only grew more desperate after the restraining order was granted. At first, I thought the legal boundaries would make her back off, but I underestimated just how far she'd go to maintain her grip on me. It started with the small stuff. Anonymous messages flooding my email, cryptic notes left on my car windshield, and even packages showing up at my apartment filled with random junk. I had no proof it was her, but I knew. It had her manipulative fingerprints all over it. Then, one night, things escalated. I was working late, trying to catch up on everything the chaos had disrupted, when I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It read, "You think you're safe now? You don't know half of what I can do." My stomach sank. I forwarded the message to my lawyer and made a report to the police, but without concrete evidence linking it to Melissa, there wasn't much they could do. Still, it felt like her way of reminding me that she wasn't done yet. The real shock came a few days later when Eric called me. He hadn't reached out since our last conversation, so I was surprised to hear from him. His voice was tense, his usual arrogance replaced by fear. "Look, I didn't want to get involved again," he said, "but I think you need to know what she's planning." "What do you mean?" I asked, already bracing for the worst. "She reached out to me," he said. "She wanted me to help her ruin you. She said if she can't get what she wants, she's going to destroy your reputation and make sure you lose everything." I felt the blood drain from my face. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I don't want any part of it," he admitted. "I made my mistakes, but I'm not going down with her." Eric's warning was enough to set me on high alert. I immediately contacted Clara, who advised me to tighten my security and document everything. I changed my passwords, installed cameras around my apartment, and started keeping a detailed record of every interaction related to Melissa. It wasn't long before her next move came. One afternoon, as I was leaving work, I noticed a group of coworkers whispering and glancing in my direction. When I checked my phone, I saw why. Melissa had shared a series of posts online, painting me as an abusive husband who had neglected her for years. The posts were filled with lies, each one more outlandish than the last. I was furious but determined not to let her win. Clara helped me draft a public statement refuting her claims, complete with evidence of her harassment and fabrications. It wasn't easy putting my personal life on display, but I knew it was the only way to protect myself. The backlash against Melissa was swift. People began questioning her credibility, especially when I provided proof of the restraining order and the falsified texts she'd sent to the police. Her carefully constructed narrative started to crumble, and with it, her support. A few days later, I received a surprising call from her parents. They'd heard about everything and wanted to meet. Reluctantly, I agreed, and we met at a quiet coffee shop. "We had no idea things had gotten this bad," her father said, looking genuinely remorseful. "We've tried to talk to her, but she won't listen." Her mother nodded, her eyes filled with tears. "We're so sorry for what you've been through. Melissa has always been difficult, but we never thought she was capable of this." It was a strange moment, hearing them apologize for their daughter's behavior. Part of me wanted to lash out, to blame them for enabling her, but another part just felt exhausted. I didn't want to carry the anger anymore. I just wanted to move on. As I left the coffee shop, I realized something. Melissa's hold on me was finally breaking. She tried to control me, manipulate me, and destroy me. But in the end, all she'd done was show me who she really was. And that was enough to make me let go for good. After meeting with Melissa's parents, I felt a strange sense of clarity. For the first time in months, I wasn't consumed by anger or fear. I was simply done. Done with the lies, the manipulation, the endless cycle of drama. I just wanted my life back. Melissa, however, wasn't ready to let go. Despite her public humiliation and the growing distance between us, she still found ways to insert herself into my life. The text continued, alternating between desperate apologies and veiled threats. She claimed she was sorry, that she was lost, and didn't know how to fix things. But I wasn't falling for it anymore. I'd seen what she was capable of, and I knew her words were empty. Then came the court date for our divorce proceedings. It was the final step in severing the legal ties between us, and I was ready to put it all behind me. Melissa, on the other hand, came in like it was her last chance to win. She arrived dressed to the nines, playing the role of the heartbroken wife who had been abandoned by her cruel husband. Her lawyer tried to paint me as cold and unloving, using her fabricated narrative to argue that she deserved a significant share of our assets. But Clara was prepared. She presented a mountain of evidence, text messages, emails, and even Eric's written statement that exposed Melissa's lies for what they were. By the time Clara was done, Melissa's case had completely unraveled. The judge ruled in my favor. Melissa was granted a modest settlement, but it was a far cry from what she had hoped for. As we left the courtroom, she approached me one last time. "You think you've won," she hissed, her voice low and venomous. "But you'll regret this. One day, you'll realize you can't replace me." I looked her in the eye and said, "I don't need to replace you. I just need to move on." The weeks that followed were a blur of tying up loose ends and settling into my new life. I finally felt free from the constant tension, the second-guessing, and the feeling of being trapped in a marriage that had long since died. I started focusing on myself, rediscovering hobbies I'd neglected and spending time with people who genuinely cared about me. One day, I got a message from Eric. He wanted to let me know that he'd taken a job in another state and was leaving everything behind. "Good luck," he wrote. "We both deserve a fresh start." I couldn't help but agree. As for Melissa, I heard through mutual acquaintances that she was struggling. Her career had taken a hit after her public outbursts, and she was having a hard time finding new allies. Part of me felt sorry for her, but I reminded myself that she had made her choices. This was the life she had built, and I was no longer responsible for fixing it. One evening, as I sat on my balcony watching the sunset, I reflected on everything that had happened. It had been a long, painful journey, but I had come out stronger on the other side. Melissa was right about one thing. Closeness is optional, but love, respect, and trust, those aren't optional, they're essential. And if she couldn't see that, then walking away wasn't just the best decision I ever made. It was the only decision.